All right, perfect day in San Diego for riding. It's like 80 degrees out here, so I'm excited to get started. Real quick, both of you guys just introduce yourselves to the good people of YouTube.
Yeah.
That way everybody knows who you are and what we're out here doing.
Hey guys, I'm Evelyn and from San Diego. This is my husband Cody.
Married to this sucker?
Yeah.
All right, and who's this sucker?
I'm Cody. I live in San Diego with Evelyn. And yeah, let's ride some bikes today.
Right on, man. Where are we headed today?
We're gonna go out to Bird Rock Coffee, which is one of the best.
We might get a pour over or an espresso.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe an iced because it's hot.
Yeah, it is hot, man. I think
already
iced
summer.
coffee is probably the move. So.
Yeah.
Cold
All right,
brew.
well, let's go ahead and
Let's
get
do
started
it.
on this thing.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right, so first thing I kind of want to dive into is just sort of how long have you been riding, right? So you probably got like a first bike story or something that comes to mind.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I guess I got into riding bikes when I was in high school, like my senior year. I got really into the whole like fixed gear, fixie scene.
But not track yet, right? It was
Not
just like
not track, just riding a bike that didn't have brakes in the street, and that was fun. So that kind of, I think that started the bug. And so when I went to college, I brought my track bike, or my fixie. I had a buddy in college who bought a road bike, and he said, "Hey, like come ride with me."
were you like, dude, you're a wimp, you don't need gear?
Exactly. I was like, what? I was like, yeah, I'll beat you up every hill with my single speed track bike. And I didn't. And so I thought, oh, maybe gears could be cool for riding bikes. So I saved up all the money I could and just bought a really cheap Ridley road bike, and yeah, from there I fell in love with it. So that was, I guess that's when I really started riding, because as soon as I started doing that, it was almost like every day.
Oh, dang. So you actually dove right in basically once you got to college then, right?
It was my junior year of college. So,
Okay.
Oh man, this is making me feel old. I was 21.
Okay.
21, so it's been 7 years. Or
All
wait,
right.
it's almost 8 years, because I'm gonna be maybe 29 next month. So
Yeah, we're about in the same situation.
yeah, I had one guy the other day say to me, he was talking to someone else and saying, when you're in your 30s like us, I said, hey, wait, man,
I'm not there yet.
I'm 28. He was like, no, at this point, you're pretty much 30.
Oh no, he's just taking 2 years off your life like that.
Yeah, I know.
You're gonna get the same question now.
Okay.
How long have you been riding? What got you into it?
I mean, seriously riding, probably just a few years because I married this guy
Okay.
and I love him so much that I thought I'd give it a try, you know?
All right.
So
How long
yeah.
have you guys been married?
We've been married for 5.5 years.
And you managed to still be stuck with him, huh?
Yep.
All right. She hasn't abandoned you yet.
No, I don't think she will.
All right.
No.
The confidence, I dig it.
I love this guy.
This is not the hill I want to die on. I know we were talking about some race wins and whatnot,
Yeah.
but give me the rundown on what's been like your sickest moment in cycling. So it could be a race win, good vibes, just riding on the weekends. What do you think?
It was like a week after I got my first bike. Was totally unprepared, but I wanted to go out and do like, for me, a 50-mile ride was like, you know, it. Like,
Dude, a week after your first bike?
Yeah, I was like, I gotta go do a long ride. The buddy of mine who kind of got me into road cycling, he showed me these videos that Rafa did to introduce their winter line, and this was, you know, back in like 2012. But anyways, it was just videos of guys like riding in the rain on these old like steel bikes, you know, but it just like had this
The
romantic
grunge,
feeling.
right? Yeah.
And so for me, I was just all about like trying to ride really far. I just loved that, like, you just kept kind of like grinding it out. Yeah, so I think that first ride that I did, I basically rode until I bonked. I didn't know anything about eating and while you're riding and all this. And I remember I fell off my bike and my legs were like spasming and stuff.
The classic bunk of like early cycling days.
Yeah, but I mean, I think growing up with CP, basically I could never get the technique down in a sport or like an activity, like a physical activity. I could never get the technique down such that I could push myself so completely. And so I think that moment for me, basically I was able to ride the bike so long that I couldn't ride it anymore. For me, that was kind of like a realization moment where I was like, oh, like this is a sport that I can actually do, and which is something I'd probably been looking for most of my life. So I think that was a really special moment. Probably the other one, it actually wasn't a win, but it was my second ever like World Cup with the US like paracycling team. But in order to like make the national team for the next season and get a paycheck, I had to win a medal. And so there was a ton of pressure going into this time trial, but I was able to like just barely pull off a bronze medal. And I don't know, I was way like outclassed. I was way outclassed by the competition there. Like all the other guys were so much stronger than me. And like the year before, I just like killed me. To be up there and then medal and then you have like my spot on the national team secured for the next year. That was a special moment. And like, even though it wasn't an out and out win, there was like a lot riding on it, I think. And it was really cool to be able to like call Evelyn and my family and say, hey, like I medaled, you know. And so I think that was just a moment that gave me a lot of confidence and, you know, encouragement to like keep doing it, I guess, keep competing.
Have you been riding for a while at that point, or how long did it take you to get to that point where you're like nationally competitive?
When was that first medal? 2018?
Oh, was before you were on the national team? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was the spring of 2018. Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you just riding unattached in 2018 then, or what?
No, so earlier that year, I won my first like national championship. And so then as a result of that, the team chose to take me to a World Cup. Basically what they'll do for World Cups, for the para team, they'll select their team, which is usually people who are already on the national team, and then they'll have a couple spots for development athletes.
Okay.
And so they have this incentive, if you're a development athlete, where basically the cost for your trip is like $2,000.
Yeah.
But if you medal, you get an incentive, which is you don't have to pay for that trip. Because basically by medaling, you secured, you know, like UCI points for Team USA. In 2018, I was brought as a development athlete. Either you medal or you have to pay $2 grand to come up, you know, to support yourself on this trip. $2 grand is never chump change.
Yeah, exactly.
It was one of those things where it's like nothing's guaranteed, and knowing how outclassed by the other riders I was, it was just like a big gamble. You know, we were saying like at the very least you get to experience this, but it was almost like if I didn't succeed, then, you know, the chances of continuing were slim, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's why it felt so good.
We're getting dropped, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if I had a third one, Evelyn was starting to like get into riding a little bit.
Yeah.
And it took like a couple of rides for her to figure out like flipping in and out of the pedals.
Okay. Me too, dude. I'm pretty sure everybody falls like at least once or twice. I mean, I still fall sometimes, but that's just because I'm an idiot.
I did too. Yeah. But anyways, that first ride where she like got the hang of it and we finished the ride, and she was like, "That was awesome." That was special for me because it's like my favorite person is doing my favorite thing to do with me. So maybe that's number one. Yeah. We'll see how many points I scored though.
Yeah, I don't know, man. She doesn't seem convinced though. So how long have you guys been vegan?
Yeah, like basically as long as we've been married.
All right, so who suckered who into the veganism, right? I guess it's not really suckering into it.
I mean, it kind of, it wasn't a, he was like, I'm gonna do this and you don't have to, but I ended up doing it too.
What was the decision maker? Like the key point, you're like, all right, we're gonna go vegan. Was it health related or?
Hands down, it was Durian Rider. I'm joking. No, I watched Forks Over Knives, and then I did lots of reading on my own.
Yeah.
But there's just so many studies and information on the link between the diseases and things that kill people now.
Cancer,
like Western diseases. Yeah. And the consumption of animal protein in particular.
Okay.
And so
cholesterol too, right?
Yeah.
Kind of leads to that.
Yeah. And so my grandpa died of heart stuff, and like we both had family members on either sides that have had complications that may have been due to that. So for me, it kind of felt like a no-brainer, and it honestly felt like a lot of stuff I'd been told was good or like I should eat or do wasn't right, and so it was kind of weird, like learning.
So like the knowledge that you had up to that point about diet was kind of like maybe a little bit misinformed, right?
Yeah, and I think I'm also kind of more of an all or none, like all or nothing kind of personality. Okay. So for me, I think you can definitely eat a perfectly healthy diet that includes animal products, but I think for me it was just easier to.
Well, if you've seen what I eat, it's the opposite of healthy.
Yeah.
I ate like 2 pounds of pasta the other day.
as we're eating this pastry.
Training for Tokyo 2020, right? For the Paralympics?
Yeah.
So give me kind of the rundown on that. I mean, obviously the pandemic has probably affected your training a little bit. Now it's Tokyo 2020 in 21, so.
Yeah, last year in a way was kind of a bummer because, you know, all that stuff that we were kind of building up for the last few years and preparing for it didn't go down. But like the side note and like the positive to that was, you know, we had our daughter last year, and so I got to be home all year, which was a huge, like, oh gosh, I can't imagine like having to travel as much as I would have. This year there's going to be 2 more World Cups. They're the last 2 events that countries can try to get start rights for the games. It's a big year of traveling. So like we were talking before, this year in April there'll be a selection event.
Similar to the one you went through in the early days, right? Okay.
So it'll be an event to determine the team that they take to the World Cups in May. So then you have 2 back-to-back World Cups in May, and then June is World Championships, which World Championships this year isn't actually, there's no start rights available. So Team USA will bring a smaller team probably. Okay. But for me, it's like the last big event where you get to race the guys that you'll race at the games.
So you know who to mark, right?
It's really important. Okay. Yeah, but for us, that is unfortunate. The timing is unfortunate because it's a week before the trials for the games, which are the selection event for the actual Tokyo team. A lot of athletes on Team USA will skip World Championships. Okay. Just to avoid the extra stress of
like a hard race.
Yeah,
right
before the trials. But a lot of athletes just care about that. All they want to do is just make it to Tokyo. Like a lot of the para athletes will say, you have to be the strongest you'll ever be at the trials. Actually, how you perform at the games is almost an afterthought because they just care about making it there. But the way I think about it is like, I want to go to the games to win. It's like, if you're gonna put all this effort, time, and everything else. I understand that you want to be really good. Like it's hard to make the team in itself. Yeah. But you don't want to go. You don't want to go and then just suck.
So with the U.S. national team, right? Paralympics, training for 2021 now. I guess really, if you want to give some background on sort of how you ended up there in terms of like, you know, jumping on the Paralympic team. Yeah. Give some background on you and why you're there.
Yeah, well, I qualified for Paralympics because I have cerebral palsy. Okay. Which for me it's pretty mild, especially when I'm on the bike. It's like really hard to tell. But if you ask me to like pick up try to eat with my left hand, you totally see like, oh, something's wrong with this dude.
For those who don't know, real quick, you know, just give them kind of the rundown on like
CP is.
Yeah, how does that manifest, I guess?
So CP is like a neurological disorder that most people are born with it, or if you have a stroke or something that can cause it.
Okay.
And pretty much what they think for me, because I was born with it, is I most likely had a stroke as a fetus. The way that I've kind of learned about it is that some of the connection from the right side of my brain that controls my motor function on the left side didn't develop fully, or like the way it's intended to. And so as a result of that, I'm weaker on the left side. So balance is a little bit impaired, and then like fine motor skills and stuff.
So you said on the bike then typically, right? I know you alluded a little bit to like, generally speaking, you found a sport that sort of you can basically compete at a high level in, right?
Yeah, well, so for me, like, because my disability is physical, you know, like my main goal in life from that time I was a little kid was always trying to figure out what I could do as good as other people. And so I tried like pretty much every year of my life from the time I was like 6 to an adult. I tried a different sport, trying to figure out what I could do. And like with baseball, I couldn't flip my glove hand over to catch a grounder. And then like football and rugby, I just got my butt kicked because I had no like balance, or at least comparative balance. But cycling is kind of such a it's much more two-dimensional. Once I really got on a bike and started riding, it wasn't just like something I could do, but it was more like something I could do compared to other people. Like I could keep up with anyone else. And so that was kind of like what really got me into it. It was kind of like, it felt like something I'd been searching for, you know, my whole life in that way.
Do you wish that you would have maybe found it earlier on? Maybe when you were a kid, right? So like kind of before the high school, fixie, college zone?
Yeah, I think so. But that said, because of my balance, like I didn't learn to ride a bike till I was 10 or 11.
Okay.
It took me a long time. I remember, you know, my brother and I both learning to ride bikes and being really frustrated because, you know, he was a little kid, you know, a year younger than me, and just, you know, took to it pretty quickly, like I think most kids usually do. But I was like on training wheels since I was 11 years old. So it was still like a learning curve. And then once I started riding, the first year that I rode a bike, I couldn't even like drink out of my bottle unless I completely stopped and put my foot down, because I couldn't balance. So I didn't start racing until I figured out, like, I remember I spent a week and I would go on bike rides and I would just practice balancing while I grabbed my bottle or ate food. And so I remember the first day I like was able to just grab my bottle and drink. I was like, you know what, maybe I could compete. Pretty much I can do a good amount of physical things, but in my life everything's just taken me a little bit longer than your average person to figure out how to do.
All right, so we talked a little bit about, you know, just racing at a high level, being able to compete on that level. And so what cat are you sitting at right now as far as like amateur crit stuff?
Yeah, so I am a Cat 2.
Okay.
Yeah, the best category there is.
no responsibility to Cat 1 or what?
Wait, no, category 2, it's like purgatory, because you have to train as much as a Cat 1, but like you don't have any clout. It's hard to win when there's no races.
Well, yeah, 100%. I mean, so you're Cat 2. You recently jumped over, I know, to Guillotine, right?
Yes. You know, I could just tell they were old buddies, and I just kind of liked the edge that the team had to it. And then, you know, I knew that this year they were trying to grow a little bit and expand. And yeah, like when you put me in the able-bodied side, I guess like my abilities don't stand out as much. Like I can have my moments, but I'm definitely more probably a mid-pack rider in that 1-2 category.
Yeah.
But either way, I think I have, you know, something to offer to a team. So honestly, like I rode with Max and Chris a few times like during the lockdown. Honestly, just had a really good time riding with them and chatting, and they're just guys who like to have fun on the bike, which I think most people do, but sometimes it can be hard to have fun on the bike. So I enjoyed that, and so I just kind of put the bug in there. You're like, hey, like, you know, you guys seem like you're doing cool things and you want to grow, and it would be a step up for me. And so it was actually kind of like last minute, like in December. You were on that ride.
Yeah,
that was the ride. The deal was sealed. Yeah, so we were on that ride with Max and Chris, and they're like, hey, yeah, we want you on the team. And so yeah, I was really stoked about that. And there's some big like hitters on the team. There's Chase and Eno from Minnesota. They're like lots of people know who Eno is, and Chase is like a super hitter. Levi and Jake are awesome. I already knew them. And then
we're getting dropped again, by the way.
Yeah. Gosh, dude. I know like Spencer, he like races super hard. And then I've actually done some racing with Christian Molina. So it's like a good crew, and it's like a crew that I'm like really honored to be a part of in terms of cycling, because there's something I can learn from all those guys, but at the same time I feel like I have something to offer. So it just seemed like a good fit, and honestly an opportunity to take a step up, because like while I have aspirations on the Paralympic side of things, I think one of the ways to kind of really get the word out about like paracycling is to have almost like ambassadors that compete and interact in the able-bodied. And so I think even just being there and competing is a step. But yeah, that said, some of my like most favorite results in like races have been against the able-bodied riders. And like it's fun because they don't even know, you know, they don't know what I have going on. And like the thing is, it's not like I'm the only person that's had to overcome something to race. Like I think everybody, like able-bodied or not, there's something they overcome to get where they are in that race. But either way, it still feels good. Yeah, it feels good to drop guys when you know like
me on group rides, right?
Well, yeah, when you know your power split is like 30-70.
Is that where you're sitting? Is 30-70, you think?
On like a bad day. And
your regular would be probably like what, 49-51 for somebody that doesn't have CP? Okay.
Yeah, so I've like kind of calculated it. If my power split, let's just say 40-60.
Yeah.
So that's like a 20% gain. Let's just say you add like 5 or 10 pounds to my body weight if I didn't have CP, because my left arm and leg are smaller. And like I've done DEXA scans before, and you can see it like, if you add the weight of my left and right leg, it's about like 8 pounds or so less. Okay. So, but still, if you take the 40-60 power split, add like 10 pounds, it's actually only a 10% difference. And that's why I kind of feel like cycling is the perfect sport for me in some ways, because it's like, yeah, I guess 10% in cycling, it can be a lot, but if you go into a store and you hear there's a big sale, but you find out it's only going to be like 10% off, a lot of times you're like, oh man, dang, that's
$2, man, come on.
That's not a sale. Yeah.
We have a pretty specific culture in SoCal that I see kind of perpetuated. I think there are maybe like a few gaps that can be filled, but I'm curious if, you know, from your perspective, what are some gaps in like cycling in SoCal, in maybe our culture overall, that you feel like, you know, we could probably fill? And then do you have any like thoughts or ideas on how we'd go about that?
That's a good question. One thing it definitely kind of feels like is like USA Cycling and like the governing body for races out here is suffering. Like with the rise of grapple, I think the alternative event is something a lot of people are looking for. Like I've talked to so many guys who are just sick and tired of driving 4 hours to race for 90 minutes in a business park. I think there's a big gap, and if you're gonna put a word in that gap, it would say fun.
Okay.
With like a question mark. And so I think like this year for sure was probably, at least people who race a ton, the fun of cycling is like, has to be, I think, what keeps you doing it, right? Because if you live and you ride only to race, well then
you would have stopped this year, right?
I would have, right? Yeah. And then also for people getting into the sport, like there used to be, I don't know, like cycling marketing that says suffer. Like while suffering is a part of the sport, I don't think anyone gets into the sport with,
Just for suffer?
with the word suffer at the forefront of their mind.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, I want to have fun, and then they start suffering, but then they realize that the suffering is a key factor in making them faster. And so they're like, that's cool, that's a part of it. But I think just that in general, like, people have to realize it's fun.
Overcoming pain goes a long way, but at the same time, you want good vibes, right?
You don't have to suffer. Like, you can go out and do a ride like this in your t-shirt.
Yeah.
Community is another big aspect of that, which again has been diminished this year. But I think that can be different for everyone. Like, some people find it even on Zwift, but I've definitely realized like the racing community is something I've lacked. So I mean, that was like a big determiner. Like, that's why I said heck yes right away when Guillotine offered me a spot, because like
They're still out riding, right?
And they're a community, right? Like, they have frequent like meetings and discussions, and I think that's important because that's what keeps you doing it. So I guess a fun community is like those are areas that cycling and SoCal can continue to work on. But I think there's already a lot, there's a lot being done. But
we're definitely working in that direction.
Yeah. It's hard not to have fun riding your bike down here.
Oh, I mean, it's absolutely amazing too. 80-degree weather, middle of San Diego, you can't beat this place. Yeah. All right, so I started to ask you how you deal with all this guy's training and all the time he spends on the bike.
I think the most realistic answer is like communication. Cyclists, I feel like there's a lot of like downtime and thinking about what happened in your race, and I think I've had to like just learn that there's a time and place for that, and then there's a time and place where I have to be like, hey, let's focus on something else, like
family time.
Yeah, so I think just over the years we've gotten like a lot better at that. It's just all about balancing your time, and then I like being open to hearing all about it. But there's definitely those days where I'm like,
dude, I don't want to hear about it.
Patience, and I'm like, can we please talk about something else?
Well, now you've got the kiddo, right?
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Pretty much newborn. I mean, I don't know, is 9 months considered newborn?
Not in the baby community.
Okay.
Yeah,
but probably to the people who don't have babies, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'd be like, wow, that's really new.
Yeah.
But you guys are experts at it now, right?
Yeah. It's
expert
new.
parents.
There you
It's
go.
new. Every day is new.
We'll ride laps around the parking lot.
Yeah, we'll do some parking lot laps.
Basically parking lot crit.
Parking lot crit. Do your smallest gear.
All right, and it's one-handed for me, so.
Let's start. We'll just go around the short lap, and we'll start right here.
All right, rolling start though, because if I stop, I'm gonna fall over.
Ready?
All right, let's do it.
Set, go.
See, he's faster even in the smallest gear. Last question of the day. Who's the fastest cyclist in SoCal? Like, not pro.
I don't know.
So leave Phil Guyman out of this, going up hills
Not
or whatever.
pro. Maybe Kevin.
Kevin.
Destini.
Oh, you think so?
I look up to him. Yeah, I do. Just with he like does all his training on a trainer.
Yeah.
I don't know. He has every KOM in that way.
That's
at least
wild.
in my section of SoCal, it's probably him.
Big call out for Kevin, so now he's got to deliver. Oh, were you cheating?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's totally cheating.
She's in Big Bang. I'm glad.
We have a cheater,
Big
folks.
Bang.
An absolute cheater.
Make sure you check out
Get the guillotine duct tape.
Guillotine.
Electrical tape.
Yeah, they didn't send me a t-shirt for this, so.
So your
don't know.
obligatory
Yeah.
sponsorship, there you go.
But check out is that how you do the @ symbol with your hand?
I don't know, be careful what you're putting up there, dude.
At Guillotine Cycling. You could check out at US Paracycling
Right on.
if you want to see. I don't know. I don't know how much they post, but you could learn some more.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Yeah.
All right.
Take it easy out there.